Are you tired of feeling like your stomach has its own agenda? Like the bloating, gas, or constant trips to the bathroom are running your life? Welcome to the Beyond Bloated podcast, the podcast where we tackle those frustrating gut issues head on, without strict diets or giving up your favorite foods. I'm Carly, a certified gut health coach who's been there, struggling with bloating that made me look 6 months pregnant, gut pain that kept me from enjoying meals, and fatigue so draining it felt impossible to get through the day. Now, I help women like you find freedom from those symptoms and take back control of their lives. Each week, we'll debunk gut health myths, dive into simple, actionable tips, and hear stories from women who've been exactly where you are. It's time to feel confident, energized, and bloat-free. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beyond Bloated podcast, or welcome for the very first time. Whether you are a newbie or whether you've been listening for the 70 plus episodes that I have released, I've got a favor to ask. Could you please take 1 minute to pause this episode, head to whatever platform you are listening on, whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcast, and give this podcast a rating. A star rating, write some words, whatever you have the time and capacity to do. It really helps me help others by them discovering the podcast and discovering all these tips and information that I am sharing so they can improve their gut health as well. So if you have 1 minute to do that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, now back to the topic at hand. Today, we are doing things a little differently on the podcast. I am going to be sharing a conversation that I had on the Successfully Chaotic podcast with the lovely host, Maria Daniels. I was lucky enough to be the first guest on the Unapologetically You series that Maria is currently running, and it is all about embracing your authentic self. In our conversation, I share more about how burnout and stress were what ultimately triggered my own gut issues, how I made the decision to leave my analyst job after spending 5 years at university to complete 2 whole university degrees, and why pushing through your symptoms or brushing them off as normal is not strength, it's actually self-sabotage. We, of course, also talk about simple, actionable steps you can take to finally start feeling better in your body, even if you have struggled for years, as I once did. I want to give a huge thank you to Maria and the Successfully Chaotic team for letting me share this episode with you. I will link the Successfully Chaotic podcast in the show notes if anyone would like to check her podcast out. It's great. She's great. I definitely recommend giving that a listen. So head to the show notes and listen to the Successfully Chaotic podcast after you hear this episode. I know you're going to get a ton of value from the conversation that Maria and I had. So let's dive right in.
Carly gets to be the first guest that we've had for this new series, and I'm excited to have her on here. We did our pre-pod chat, and I really loved all of the things that she was saying, and any of you that have listened to me long enough, you know kind of where my heart is at in the wellness world as well. And so no matter if you have no idea about gut health or you've heard a little bit about it, and I think if anybody's on social media, I think you've probably ran across something that talks a little bit about it right now. But I know Carly is going to jump in and tell us a little bit more. She is a certified gut health coach and founder of Beyond Bloated. And she's like your gut health BFF. And I really love that, your gut health BFF. We all need that, right? She knows her stuff, but she keeps it real and approachable. And she helps women ditch chronic bloating without strict diets or food fear. And today we're going to get to hear a little bit about why ignoring the signals that your body is sending, that's not strength. It is self-sabotage. And I know no matter where you're at, again, with your own health journey, we've all been there, right? Even if we kind of, quote unquote, know better, we still kind of end up in that spot sometimes where we feel like our body's kind of been sabotaged or we're self-sabotaging, whether, unknowingly or accidentally or whatever. But I want Carly to jump in and I want her to introduce herself, and then we'll get this show on the road.
Hello. Yes. Thank you so much, Maria. I'm very excited to be here and to share a bit about my own story and then how I got to the other side, because it was quite the journey, which I know we'll get into in a moment. And I did come out the other side, which is the most important part. You don't have to live with these chronic issues. You do not have to accept it. You should not ignore it, as you mentioned. Very, very important. But yeah, I've got a lot to share today. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm super excited to have you on here. I know, just being a woman and add-on business owner, and then a lot of my listeners are also moms, and all the other layers that go with just living, I always say, like a full human life, right? We have all these layers. And again, even if you know better, just that chronic stress sometimes can be enough that pushes you on the other side. And I know we're getting ready to hear a little bit about your story, which I'm excited to hear, because I think it really will resonate with a lot of people, because we've all been there, where it might just start out with those little subtle warnings, right? There's the bloating or, something like that. But then that can get way worse if it's not addressed. I do want you to go ahead and jump in and share with us again how you started in on this journey. What was your big aha with, the fact that you really needed to look at, things a little bit differently?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, it is kind of in the name, Beyond Bloated. That was kind of my aha trigger moment. But before that, I was still very unhealthy, and I had a lot of symptoms that were popping up that I didn't recognize as being an issue, as being a problem, because like you said, we push it aside, we normalize it. So back in my university days, even high school, really, I was sick all the time. I had chronic infections like UTIs and throat infections. I had like 5 canker sores in my mouth at one time while I was on vacation. And if you have ever had a canker sore, it is so painful. And then you have 5 of them in your mouth. I could not enjoy my vacation. I could not eat. I could not drink. Lots of other things, chronic fatigue. But again, I was in university. I thought this is what university life is. I was doing a dual degree program. So I do have degrees in math and education. So I was doing that along with eating a horrific diet. I did not know how to cook. Craft dinner, that's the university life. I drank too much. I'd go out with my friends. We'd stay out till 2 a.m. I did not sleep, did not exercise. However, I had always been thin. My whole life, I had been thin. So I didn't think I was unhealthy. Even though I was doing all these things, I truly did not believe there was anything wrong with me. I thought, again, university life and bad genes. My mom also had a lot of chronic UTIs, some canker sores, things like that I just kind of passed off as, oh, it was passed on to me. Too bad for me. I ignored it, continued living my life the way I was living it, with my drinking and a horrible diet and no exercise and no sleep and stress beyond belief. And when I started working my full-time job as a data analyst, so graduated university, got my degrees, decided I'm going to go full-time into the office world, I was miserable. I hated it. I hated it so much. Like, I had so much stress and anxiety going into this job every day because I was so miserable. And I was like, I don't want to be there. And that is what triggered my actual gut issues to start. I think it was about 2 to 3 months into that job that all of a sudden I looked bloated every single day, like pregnant woman bloated. I had very stabbing gut pains, like every time I ate. I became sensitive to gluten and dairy, which I later found out. And it was that was the aha moment for me, because I was like, okay, I didn't have these things before. Now I do. Something has caused this, and I can't push this aside. I can't live this way because I can't be running to the bathroom every 10 minutes throughout my day. Like, that is disruptive and painful. And also, I didn't like the way I looked. Like, I couldn't wear my clothes anymore because I looked pregnant, and I was in my 20s, early 20s, mid 20s. And it hit my confidence, like I didn't feel good in my body anymore. And that was the moment to me that I was like, okay, something is wrong. I need to do some digging. And that is where the journey began.
Well, and I like how you explain this a couple different ways, because obviously there's a couple different things going on here, right? You're blazing your path to success, right? Or what you think success looks like. And I know we talk a lot about that on this show. And then not only that, you're pushing through and doing the things that, all quote unquote college students do, eating the foods that they all eat, because it's kind of a known fact, right? College students typically eat like crap. It's just expected. And like you said, you start with these symptoms. It's like, you know what, this is just, part of it. My mom had it, all these things that we tell ourselves. And, I think that, because obviously I know a little bit of your story. So I think that probably is where obviously you started to pivot, right? That you were, chasing this successful life. And maybe you even felt like you had made it and everybody else thought you had made it, right? But you felt like crap. You felt like garbage. And your health was really starting to change at that moment because, obviously your gut kind of knows before your brain does. Can you start to kind of take us on that, a little bit of that journey? Because I know a lot of people end up there, right? Yeah, that they start to have all these symptoms, maybe it's the stressful job or the stressful relationship or like whatever, right? But their body is like, hello, like there's some stuff going on here that yes, it could be diet related and all kinds of things related, but it also is environmental related. Like it's that combination. Can you kind of take us on that journey a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that stress is the worst thing for our health. Like you could be eating the most perfect diet, you could be exercising, which could cause you stress, by the way, depending on how you're exercising, when you're exercising. If you're doing all the things right, but you are stressed, and there's also different types of stressors. There's like the mental stress that we feel mentally not okay. Like we have anxiety. We're like, oh my God, this is weighing on me. There is that stress. And there is also the physical stress that the body feels that you might not be aware of. And I think for me, that's where it started. I was putting my body under a lot of physical stress by not treating it well, not eating well, not sleeping, not moving, doing all the things. But I was fine, like I was going out with my friends, having fun. I was like, woo, life, who cares? But my body was under a lot of stress. And that is why I had chronic fatigue, canker sores, chronic infections, sick all the time. List goes on and on. Once I added in that mental stress, the job I hate, the anxiety of going to work every day and being bored out of my mind, thinking like, oh my God, I just did 2 university degrees and this is my life now. Like I have to do this forever. That is what triggered the gut issues. That was my body screaming at me like, okay, we've got the physical stress. Now we've got the mental stress. We can't take this anymore. Like you need to change your ways, your life, your stress, your everything, because we are screaming at you. My gut, my body was screaming at me to stop doing what I was doing. And I was continuing to push through, right? Like I was still going to that job. I was still living my life. I was still going out and drinking with my friends on the weekend. Like I hadn't changed anything. I just added more. And my body said, enough. That is where we draw the line. And that is what finally got me to pay attention.
Well, and I know a lot of people listening right now, I can guarantee you they're like, oh my gosh, I felt like that before. I felt bloated. I felt fatigued. I feel all of these things. And, a lot of us do try to push through, right? And you mentioned screaming. And I think that's a great way to put it because the body starts out as a whisper, right? And we typically don't listen. We don't listen because, it's that minor headache. It's like, well, I mean, people get headaches, right? Or, like leg cramps, people get leg cramps. I'm a little fatigued, well, people get fatigued. And we always kind of brush it off as the norm. But, that's our body just giving these like soft whispers like, hey, I'm not really loving this fill in the blank thing that's going on and I'm needing you to pay attention. And most of us don't. We do not pay attention until it is a scream, until our body is literally screaming like, hey, pay attention. There's a lot of things going on. And, and a lot of times we'll feel kind of trapped in our situation too. Even when we do realize that something's going on, it's like, well, what do I do to change it? Like you mentioned, like with your own journey, you spent, years earning this dual degree and you were miserable. You're like, okay, this is not really what I thought I was signing up for. This doesn't feel good to me, my body, but you felt stuck. Can you share a little bit about just that moment where you realized that maybe you wasn't stuck as you thought you were?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit of a unique individual in that sense where like, I do typically do what I want. And I try my best to make myself happy and try to push out the other, what will this person think of me? But we're all human. Like my parents helped fund my university degree. And I had a partner who's like, well, I have this job. I'm trying to save for us to move out together. And my friends are all excited for me because we went to school together and they're like, yeah, Carly got a job. So of course there is in the background thinking like, what are these people going to think about me when I make a decision to change career paths or quit this job or whatever? But I will say I am surrounded by very supportive people who genuinely care about my happiness over what success looks like. So when I was coming home and complaining to my parents, because I still lived at home when I started this job, day in, day out about how miserable I am and how much I hate it, they did encourage me to like look for something else, like try finding a different job. Did they think this was going to be the job that I found? No. They were thinking I would find a different office job or a different career, similar using my degrees still. So it took me a while to figure out that this was what I wanted to do because I had to go through my own gut health journey to get here. But I would say about 3 to 4 or 5 months into that first data analyst job that I had, I was like, I can't stay here. Like I'm going to figure out how to leave, how to find something different, how to get out of this because I know myself and I can't stay in this environment. And my body is screaming at me, telling me this isn't right, which I didn't know at the time, by the way. I didn't connect those dots until much later in life. But yeah, I'm not one to sit in misery for too long. So to be completely honest, I knew pretty quick that I was going to get out. It was the matter of how am I getting out? What am I going to do? Because I'm not irresponsible. I'm just going to have like no job and live off my parents' income for who knows how long, I was like, I need a plan, but I did know I'm not staying here. I need to get out.
Well, kudos to you, first of all, and kudos for your entire support system because, that is not always the case. And I'm glad that it was in your case, but I know that it was still not completely easy. And, I know that a lot of us, particularly women, we push through that exhaustion, that bloating, that burnout, not only because we think we have to, but also there's this like side of this, almost like a badge of honor. And, I think it's so important what you just said that, you have to sit and with yourself sometimes and say, am I happy? And if not, why am I not happy? And then obviously that leads into deeper, like, why am I feeling like crap? Why am I getting canker sores? Why am I getting sick all the time? And it like takes you on this whole entire journey. And I know if people are not aware of, wellness as a whole, they may be just aware of the gut health trends. It's super trendy. Like I said, a lot of people have seen it go across their screen, but I love the fact that you keep it so real. I want you to kind of like share a little bit on your thoughts just on the gut health, right? Like, what is your take on all the wellness noise that is out there right now, and how does the way that you approach it differ?
Hey everyone, Carly here. If you are tired of feeling bloated and uncomfortable, which I know you are, I have something that can really help. My free ultimate guide to bloat busting. I've been there myself, and I know how frustrating it is to try super restrictive diets and expensive supplements without getting results. If those methods were going to work, they would have worked by now. That's why I created this guide to offer you a different approach. In the ultimate guide to bloat busting, you'll learn techniques to listen to your body and eat with intention, avoiding overeating and choosing foods that truly benefit you, tips for proper hydration to support digestion and reduce bloating, a guide to delicious foods that promote a healthy gut and how to easily incorporate them into your meals, and effective methods to manage stress, which plays a huge role in gut health. These simple, practical strategies can make a big difference in your daily life, helping you feel lighter, more energized, and comfortable in your own skin. Ready to ditch the bloat without strict diets or costly supplements? Download your free copy today at beyondbloated.com/ultimate-guide and start your journey to a bloat-free life. Now, let's get back to it. Yeah, I will be completely honest with you here and say I hate all of the wellness trends and noise and do this diet, take this supplement. And the reason why I hate it is because I fell for it. I fell for it for a very long time. And kind of going back a little bit in time where I started my gut health journey, I did a food sensitivity test right out the gate. And that, I wish I didn't do that in a way, because that set me up for a really bad relationship with food. My food sensitivity test lit up like a Christmas tree. My naturopath at the time told me, this is the worst one I've ever seen. I had to eliminate everything that I was eating at that time. And as I mentioned, I didn't know how to cook. I was very unhealthy. So it was very traumatic. And I had in my head, okay, to fix this, I need to eliminate all these foods. That's the only way to do it. So I did. I eliminated a bunch of foods. I started with gluten and dairy, which I will say is helpful for a lot of people at the start, but it doesn't mean you need to stay that way. It doesn't mean you need to restrict further. Everyone is individual. I work with clients who are gluten dairy free. I also work with clients who are not. Not everybody is the same, but that was how it started for me. So then I went down this path of low FODMAP diet, candida cleanse, liver cleanse, like all these crazy restrictive diets. As I mentioned, excuse me, I was already thin. I had been my whole life. I started losing more weight because I was restricting not even just like junk food, but healthy foods. If you're familiar at all with like the low FODMAP diet or even the carnivore diet or the keto diet, you are restricting healthy foods from your diet. You are taking out cruciferous vegetables and other like whole grains that are beneficial for our gut microbiome. Our gut literally needs fiber. Okay. I'm going to say it loud and clear. You should be eating fiber if you want to support your gut health. And these diets, these extreme measures, these protocols that say, take this supplement and your bloat will be gone in a week, is giving hope to people who are desperate, like I was. I wanted an answer. I didn't care what I had to do. I would have done it. So when someone flashes something in front of you and says, hey, this is super easy, quick fix, pay $100 for these supplements and you'll be good. And you're going to believe it. So you do it because you want to feel better. And honestly, a lot of these companies, there are good companies out there, but a lot of them are preying on people like myself who feel horrible every single day. They want an answer. They don't know what to do. And that is their option at the time because they see it and they believe it. So I don't like these trendy, quick fix, extreme measures because I did them all. I truly did them all. I spent so much time and money on them. I developed a horrible relationship with food. I lost an unhealthy amount of weight, which took me over a year to gain back because I am very thin and it's hard for me to put on weight. I had to spend a lot of time getting out of that mindset and like reintroducing foods into my diet and not putting the blame on what I was eating, which is a huge part of how I work with women now, is getting back to the foundations. Because I can honestly tell you, there was not one single diet or supplement protocol that helped me reverse my issues, because I have reversed my gut issues. I have very healthy digestion. I do not get sick. I sleep well. I have energy all day. I haven't had a canker sore in I don't know how long. And it wasn't because of all those crazy things that I did. It was because I stopped doing those and I went back to basics and I started working on sleeping 8 hours at least consistently every night, working on my bedtime and morning routine to manage my stress, stepping away from my work midday, going for a walk, taking that breather, eating mostly whole foods, sure, but I go out for brunch. I still have the occasional glass of wine, but I'm not as crazy as I was. I'm a lot more intentional with how I'm treating my body. I exercise regularly, but I do exercise that I enjoy. I don't force myself to go to the gym. I like spin class once in a while. I like Pilates once in a while.
I'll lift weights at home because that's fun for me and I enjoy it. So big picture, it's the things that we know we should be doing that we ignore because it seems too simple. It seems like our issues are so big and so life disrupting, which they are, that we need this big extreme measure to reset. But you don't. You need to get back to the basics and just do the foundational things, and that will get you so much farther than any sort of crazy diet or supplement protocol.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. You said like a lot of things and I loved it. But let's start with the fact that you mentioned intention. And I do think that is the foundation, right? The intention that, you know what, I want to feel better. I want to give to my body. I want to nourish my body. And I do think a lot of people end up with an unhealthy relationship to food. And I'm like you, I am anti, diet. I do think there's some of them that have been made for particular issues, like keto, for example. If you look at why it was created, it has a time and a place, right? But a lot of these are very, very restrictive. And even if they're done, they need to be done very carefully with a professional for a specific thing. So I 100% agree. Because you end up with so many imbalances from that it might seem like it's helping, quote unquote, for a while. But then it causes all these other hosts of issues because you are literally like removing like typically core pieces of a healthy diet. And the same thing with supplementation. Like, number one, all supplements aren't equal. And then, not everybody's going to be able to process them the same. And you may not actually be deficient. And so I think a lot of times people, like you mentioned, want that answer. And I did the same thing that you did. I did the same thing that you did back in the day, is that you're missing A, you replace it with A, I thought. But it was much more complicated than that in some ways, but actually much more simple than that, if that makes any sense at all. But, it's one of those things that I think people just don't know, and they don't have the background. They don't, have somebody that they're working with like yourself. And I think that's why it's so important to find that person that's willing to work with you as an individual and not just sell you this like protocol that they give to every single person, because like you said, everybody is so different, and what works for you is not necessarily going to work for me. And, and then you get even more complicated than that, especially with women, is what works this week in my cycle isn't necessarily going to be what my body needs next week in my cycle, and so it's so interesting just when you really start diving into it. And I'm a big supporter of, we all are human. We all have a human body, that we should at least at like the bare level learn about our body. And then if we've got some stuff going on, find somebody that understands that to the next level that can help you on that journey. But it is everyone's responsibility to at least learn something, right? And I could get on my soapbox of how I think that deeply should be taught in school, since literally every single person that has ever gone to school has a body. But I won't go on that soapbox. But all right, so let's kind of like shift this into when you're working with women who I'm assuming probably have gone through a lot of things that all of us gone through, right? Like they're burnout, a lot of stress, their gut health is like non-existent. They have inflammation, they have all these symptoms. They're, they have no way to just like quit all their stress, right? Because I always jokingly say, because I have 7 kids, so I always jokingly say, like, some of my stress, I don't want to quit. Like, I love my kids. Yes, sometimes I need them to like just go somewhere else for a minute, but I don't want to quit, being around them. So some stress is just part of your life. And there's some stress if it's like ongoing and then, it's not great for you. Maybe it's a job and, you need to find a different job or whatever. You do need to quit that. But I think it's like one of those things you got to sit and sort out. So once you've kind of sorted out your stress life, how do you recommend people start to figure out, all right, well, I need to work on my gut health? What is that 1 or 2 or 5, whatever things where anybody listening right now is like, oh, you know what? I get like sick really often now, or I've been super fatigued. And I also love that you mentioned that it wasn't only about the gut, right? That you mentioned sleep, you mentioned like all these other things. So what are some things that, first of all, they would notice is going on, and where would you have them start?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, because to be honest with you, from what I have seen in myself and women that I have worked with, if you have any sort of chronic condition coming back again, it almost always stems from the gut. And I'm talking, yes, all the things that I mentioned for myself: fatigue, canker sores, sickness, infections, obviously gut issues, right? Like if you're having diarrhea, constipation, bloating, acid reflux, heartburn. And also, constipation means you need to be going at least once a day and like easy to pass. I've talked to many people who have like told me they go twice a week and they're like, well, that's normal. And I'm like, it's normal for you. It's not normal for what your gut should be doing. So all of those, yes. However, gut health also impacts mental health, which I think is something that is super important and not talked about. I have worked with clients who have come to me for their gut issues, all the things I just mentioned. They're also on anxiety and depression medication. Yeah. And I'm not saying this is for everybody and this is the case. However, from working on their gut, they have been able to either come off or significantly reduce their mental health medication. We did not do mental health directed work. We worked on the gut. It is all connected. The brain and the gut speak to each other. They are connected by the vagus nerve. That is science. That is not me making that up. So There is a direct connection there. Your gut is connected to everything. And if you have something that is reoccurring and you can't figure out why, it is most likely not your genes or bad luck. It is mostly probably something to do with your diet and your lifestyle. And that directly impacts your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome speaks to the whole body. So to answer your question, if there is any sort of issue that is reoccurring and you can't figure it out, I would work on your gut health because, I mean, it's not going to hurt, right? Like improving your gut health isn't going to damage you in any way. And I bet it will improve whatever symptom is happening. It's going to take time. Don't think it's going to be like, boom, we're good. I myself, when I was working on my own gut health, saw symptoms slowly trickle away. And that is kind of how I made that connection. I actually have an episode on my own podcast where I talked about 10 non-related GI symptoms that went away after I improved my own gut. Some of them I've listed here. 10. Also, forgot to mention, your period, your cycle, your menstrual cycle is also connected to your gut health. I used to have excruciating periods, very irregular, horrible. I would be keeled over in pain. Now, I don't even notice when I start menstruating because it's painless, it's light, it's easy breezy. Women often just normalize horrible periods like, oh, it's that time of the month, life is over, I'm going to curl up on a ball on the couch and just be miserable. It shouldn't be that way. And you can improve that. I did it for myself. I've done it for my clients. So truly anything out there could be related to your gut health. And I would start with something that sounds doable to you. So I've mentioned, like, in my program, we work on the 4 pillars of health, I like to call them: nutrition, sleep, movement, and stress management. Everybody's going to have a different starting point. I don't do this the same with all of my clients, but for you in your own life, what do you feel like in one of those areas is really struggling? You know, like which one are you like, I could really work on this and improve it? And what's a small step that you can make to improve that? For example, I'll do sleep. A lot of people struggle with sleep. Is it that you're on your phone up until the moment you close your eyes? Is it that your bedtime is very erratic? You know, you're going to bed at 9 p.m., then you're going to bed at midnight, then you're going to bed at 10. Like, is it all over the place? Do you get morning sunlight? Because that can help reset your circadian rhythm to help you sleep better. Is it that your bed just literally isn't comfortable? Like, can you improve your environment in your room, make it darker, make it cooler, have a sound machine? Like, pick literally one thing that you're like, I can do this, I can improve it, and start there. Because it comes down to foundations, and slowly but surely you will build better habits that will improve your gut health and improve whatever symptom is going on with you.
I love that. And I think that is perfect because, you know, again, everybody's life is different and everybody's life is different day to day, week to week, sometimes a little bit. And I love that bite-size approach because, again, sometimes, and I've done this with stuff too. It's like, all right, that's it. I'm turning over a new leaf. This is who I am now. And we'll just use journals as an example because usually like first of the year, I'm like, I'm a journaling person now. This is who I am. I'm going to journal. And I've finally this year, this was the first year I did not buy a new journal because I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write in it 5 times and then I'm going to stress out about the fact that I didn't write in it. And it's just not for me. Right. So I love that you mentioned for you, because I think that's part of really honing in on, yes, this is what my body needs. This is what I need. But also you have to kind of get to know yourself too. Like, what is it that I can start with today? I don't need like another job or more stress, because obviously more stress is going to be worse, right? What is something that's going to be doable for me? And, habits, you mentioned the word habit. And I think that's so huge because some of the habits that we get into, again, it's like in society, it's the norm. You mentioned staying on your phone until right before you go to bed. I mean, there's lots of memes. I mean, I laugh at them, right? That says like when you're supposed to be in bed and it's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. or whatever. Sleep used to be something I had a very poor relationship with because I have a lot of kids. And so I would use the middle of the night to quote unquote catch up on everything. Number one, I wasn't effective because I was exhausted. So, it would take me 3 hours to do something that typically it might take me 1 hour to do because I was exhausted. And then I was starting that cycle the next day of being exhausted all day and then feeling like crap, and I think a lot of people, end up with these bad habits, not on purpose, not that we just set out like, I'm going to have bad habits. It just happens because it's part of life. But what I've realized, and I, for myself, sleep-wise, is I pick my bedtime. This is my bedtime. And it's become a joke. It's become a joke with my friends and stuff because we'll be like, well, we would invite Maria, but it's past 9 p.m. So she's not going to, and that's fine. I'll be the joke because I have such a great relationship with sleep now. I love sleep. And I think it's once you start giving your body some of the things that it needs, it's like, yes, girl, give me some more, because you start to feel better, and you mentioned just about, menstrual cycles and stuff. And that's another thing I think that has become a society norm, right? That we're supposed to hurt. We're supposed to, and I'm like you, I don't, but I also am very intentional with gut health. I think that there's so many things that can be improved by giving your body the things that it needs and actually listening to what your body is trying to tell you. I know you sent a link, and I'm going to put it up here on the ticker for a freebie that you're going to give the listeners. If I can get it pulled up here. Can you tell us a little bit about what's on here if they go there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have on my website a couple of free resources to help you kind of get started on your own gut health journey. The one listed below is my bloat free day checklist. So you can go to beyondbloated.com/checklist. It's free. And it's all about very foundational habits that we ignore, but would be very, very beneficial for you to just start with honestly one. So I made it a checklist because checklists are fun, and you can start by checking off the things that you already do. And I have broken it down into morning, afternoon, evening, and anytime. So you can kind of be like, okay, what does my morning look like, afternoon, etc., and see where you are already thriving. Of course, everyone's life is different. I do not expect a single person to check off every single one of these boxes. I don't check off every single one of these boxes every single day. I do my best. I have very core habits that I do check off every single day. But the idea is to give you a starting place, to give you some ideas on how you can improve your daily routine. Some of the habits are based around lifestyle components. Some of them are based around mealtime hygiene. Some of them are based around like what to include in your diet to help with gut health. So, for example, I'm a very big believer in eating breakfast. I see it so often that women skip breakfast, whether because they are having coffee. Coffee is an appetite suppressant. If you drink coffee first thing in the morning and you're like, I'm not hungry for breakfast, I know, because you had coffee. That doesn't mean you don't need the fuel. Also, cortisol stays high if you skip breakfast. If you are working out on an empty stomach, you are stressing your body out. I believe eat your breakfast. So that's one of the habits on here, Did I eat breakfast within 1 to 2 hours of waking? I didn't say what breakfast to eat. I just said eat something. So it is very doable for most people. And it's, again, a starting point to help you get on track and start working on your gut health in a very manageable way. There's no crazy diets. There's no supplements involved. It's just getting down to foundational habits that truly work. They work for me. They work for my clients. I promise you that.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I love checklists too. Checklists are easy. And I like you said, go ahead and check the ones off that you've already done, because I'm that person that when I'm making my to-do list, I'll also put the stuff I've already done on it so I can check them off, because it makes me feel better about my entire day. And I love that it's in bite-sized pieces too. And I know, most people are going to be great at some things and okay at some things. Cause I know there's some things that hasn't really ever been a struggle for me. Like I've always been like a healthy, quote unquote, eater. I was just raised like that. But I have a lot of friends who they were not raised eating healthy. And so, that has been a struggle for them where it wasn't for me. But other things, like I mentioned earlier, sleep was a big thing. I watched my mom wear her like non-sleep as a badge of honor. So I thought that's just like what you did. You have kids, you just like never sleep again. This is what we do now. So I think it's like whatever your, struggles are, you're going to have things you're naturally it's a little bit easier for you. You're going to have things that's a little bit harder for you. And that's okay. I love that it's the checklist and it's not super in detailed. And I know you mentioned supplements a couple of times. I'm glad you did, because I do think it's almost like this Band-Aid. Like I'm not anti-supplement. I've had people think I am. I mean, there's a couple of supplements I take because I had the blood work done. I know that I chronically stay low in it, and I take them and I take the form I need, etc. Right. I'm not anti, but I think what ends up happening is they're like, oh, I had coffee all day and nothing else, and I eat like crap, and I'm getting absolutely no nutrients, and I'm never sleeping, and I'm chronically stressed. And on top of the stress, I'm running 14 marathons this week. But then I'm going to take this supplement and it's going to like make it all better, and I think it's not that I'm anti-supplement. It's more that it's like, okay, well, that doesn't, negate the needs that the body has. And I think we need to look at it like that, right? The needs. And you mentioned mental health. That's a big part of it. If you're chronically anxious and depressed and stuff, that, is the body getting the nutrients it needs? Because, I think that's, obviously a big thing. And then even if you're eating them, if your gut health is off, is your body absorbing the nutrients that you're eating? And you mentioned about like bowel movements. Is it staying in your intestines? And, you're not passing out that waste, or even worse, you're taking all those supplements and medications and your body's reabsorbing them, or the hormones, your body's reabsorbing them. So, I think it becomes this chronic thing that, like you mentioned, starts with gut health. If you're listening to this on the podcast platforms, go to beyondbloated.com/checklist to get your checklist. Just download it today. You need to. We all have things we need to work on. And like she said, go ahead and check off those things you've already done, because you get a gold star for that one. Is there anything else that you want to mention today?
Yeah. So I want to do a quick recap on what you said, or comment on what you said. Supplements can supplement. They are not a fix-all kind of solution. I myself do take a few supplements to this day, but I've spent thousands on supplements, and it's disgusting. And I wish I could have that money back, because it didn't do anything for me in the long run. There are a few that might be beneficial for you. I do not start any of my clients off on supplements. We do the foundational work, we see where we can get, and then we add on supplements based on what might be missing. But it's not a starting point. So if you are out there looking for the miracle cure, the miracle pill, it doesn't exist. Please stop looking. You're wasting your time and your money. And I want you to start working on your habits, because that is going to help you. And then we can re-look at supplements later down the line. So yes, thank you for saying that about supplements.
Obviously, the best place to reach you is probably through your website, correct?
Yeah, so you can reach me. Beyondbloated.com is my website. There is a space there. You can email me, carlyclose@beyondbloated.com. I'm also on Instagram @beyond.bloated. I'm very active there, so you can DM me. I'm always happy to chat. I also do free discovery calls. If you are interested in learning more about my program and seeing if it is a good fit for you, just reach out and we can schedule that.
Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story and all your wisdom. And hopefully, if you're listening, today's episode made one thing clear, is that success shouldn't cost us our health. And when our body and our gut is screaming at us, it's time to listen.
Did you learn something new and useful today? If the answer is a big, resounding hell yeah, do me a favor. Subscribe to this podcast. Even better, toss a rating in there too. It helps more bloated babes discover this show and lets me keep bringing you this free, gut-loving content every single week. And hey, don't be greedy. Share this episode with your bestie who's always unbuttoning her pants after dinner. She will love you even more for it. Thanks for hanging out with me and showing your gut some love. Keep on putting what you learn into practice and you will be bloat free in no time. Catch you in the next one. Bye.